In this activity, you have to draw up a chart like the one here, showing significant characters from the text you studied and their particular characteristics. So we're going to look at just one possible character to give you an idea of what you could fill in. You could make your chart bigger than this one. It could fill up a whole A4 page, and that way you could have more space to fill in detail and perhaps relevant quotations on personality, relationships, and function. So we're going to look at a character from Lord of the Flies by William Golding. His name is Piggy. That's his nickname, but that's the only name we ever know him by. So his description, his appearance, this is mostly about what the character looks like. So Piggy is overweight, short-sighted, he wears glasses, he has asthma, and all that is relevant. Usually in a novel, the physical appearance is relevant in that it tells us something about the character, or in some ways it determines the character. In Piggy's case, it means he's not one of the athletic boys. He doesn't take part in the hunting on the tropical island on which the boys find themselves. But his being not a very active boy has encouraged him to become a thinker instead. Now, next we look at background. In Piggy's case, he comes from a poorer background than the other boys, and he's brought up by his aunt. We know that he's from a poorer background because whereas the other boys speak in a fairly educated middle-class way, he speaks in a more non-standard English colloquial way. Personality, obviously very important. Piggy is very trusting. He's too trusting, in fact. He tells Ralph, the first boy he meets on the island, his nickname, Piggy, but also says that he doesn't want to be called by that name, but of course Ralph tells everyone else that this is Piggy, and he's stuck with being called by the same name. Despite this, he's logical. He's very much a thinker. He's a sort of plodding thinker, but he thinks in depth, and he follows an idea through, and this is what Ralph admires about him. That's what he comes to admire about him. Piggy's also got a faith in justice, in the basic humanity of people and in their willingness to do the right thing. He's also brave, although he's not an obvious hero given his physical characteristics. Relationships. His main relationship is with Ralph, who becomes his friend on the island. He has a relationship with the younger children on this island, who are called the little uns. That's what he calls them. And he's protective towards them, partly because he's got a basic kindness in him, and partly because he thinks that's the right thing to do. That's the civilized way to behave, to protect the people who are less able to look out for themselves. And he dislikes Jack, who is a boy who believes much more in the rightness of power, and who is prepared to become a savage and to become a leader of the boys who come to be called the Savages. The function of the character. Now this is a section that begins to look at what the author wants to do with the character or through the character. So let's look at the function of Piggy. He's the voice of reason, and he champions civilized behavior. The whole novel, The Lord of the Flies, could be said to be about how far human beings are actually led by a belief in civilized behavior, and how far they're prepared to become savage and treat each other appallingly if the circumstances make it possible. So you could say that his being a champion of civilized behavior actually in the end gets him killed, because that's what happens to him. And you could say that this means that his function is to show that, or his function for William Golding is to show that there is perhaps essentially not a lot of hope in the idea that human beings will ultimately behave in a civilized and moral way if they are allowed to behave otherwise.